My name is Leanne Shafer, and I just lost my little thing here. I am the program advisor for the Bachelor of Professional Studies program and also work in outreach and engagement. I've taught the PRFS 498 under a different name, it was BGS 498, for a long time, like maybe 9 or 10 years. I have to concentrate here and put my password in. And so I converted it. And I converted it in a way that I taught it online, but it was just basically kind of an independent study course with some exchanges of PowerPoints and Word documents, etc. So I feel like this has really been a good growing experience for me. Two major things that happen in this 7.5-week course. These are adult learners. This is a capstone course. It's also a writing embedded course. It's heavily writing centered. Is two things that they do. They create a professional portfolio that includes a resume, summary of their professional development and community engagement. They also include in that portfolio an autobiography that is based on their learning experiences across their adult lifespan, since high school graduation through their adult lifespan. And those learning experiences can be from events, from parenting, from personal relationships, hobbies, travel, obviously their career, their education, those kinds of things. So that's an autobiography. That portfolio also includes a mission statement, a personal mission statement, a la Stephen Covey, begin with an end in mind, go through the mission statement workshop. And that portfolio we were able to discover can be added online. So we now have that online thing, and I talked about that at our mid-phase review showcase. So let me go back here. So I also feel really good about the way my left side is organized. Basically, we have the start here. I'm going to put together a welcome message. I tried to do that with a little voice thread, and that welcome message includes the first of our student engagement, student-to-student engagement, and that's simply a course introduction. Hi, my name is Joe, and I work at so-and-so. I asked them to include their name, where they work, their job title, their job description. I also asked them two other things. One would be a career goal, because these are folks that are pretty close to graduation in terms of finishing a bachelor's degree, although they may have had 15 or 20 years with their same employer. So I'd like to get them thinking about what their career goals are beyond graduation. And the other item that I asked them to include in their self-introduction is what they have to pay to the course, just as a way of getting started. And my plan then is to try to address those what you hope to get from the course, try to address those one by one as they come up in the course itself, as week to week, and the announcements or some other way. But I'll keep that in mind. Typically, if I have 8 or 10 students in this class, this would be a lot. So it's very individualized. So they create that portfolio. That's one of the major assignments, and then the other major assignment that really starts in earnest in week 3 is that they begin an applied research project within their employment. So I'll just show you a couple of things here. The weekly units is probably the most important. And that includes, again, the first 2 weeks, we talk a little bit about adult development and begin on the portfolio. One of the other ways that the students engage with each other after they've introduced themselves is that they are assigned just a couple of short readings about adult development. And they're asked to read about what the markers of adulthood are. And I asked them to tell us, give me your opinion on what do you think are the most important indications that someone's an adult. They have basically 6 different items. One of them is becoming a parent. One of them is getting a real job. And I asked them to rate those, and they're always different. This is a fascinating assignment, it really is. But they're always different. But I asked them to rank them first, number 1 through number 6. And so what I've asked them to do in this particular interaction is get back on the voice thread and give their rankings, the first one and their 6th one, and then just a rationale and then a reflection on their own personal experience as to why they chose that particular rank. Again, I feel like that's a way for them to interact with each other, to get acquainted a little bit more, and to just kind of get used to using voice thread to post comments, that kind of thing. So that's a second way that students are engaged with each other as well as with the class. As far as other engagement with the content of the course, these students are very engaged with the content of the course because they are creating their own professional portfolio. Now, you can't get more engaged than that. And they're also working on a project, or an applied research project that is within their own employment setting. And they have to have a stake in that in some way. So this is a given in my case. The other thing that's a given here is that this is cheat proof, so I don't have to have all those extra guards and safeguards against cheating, because these are people they're not gonna cheat on writing their own autobiography. I'm really glad about that. I've really been happy that I don't have to worry about those kinds of things, but I'm glad that those safeguards are in place. Again, the first couple weeks are they're working mostly on that autobiography, not just, and the portfolio itself. In week 3, we start to get involved with what I call the Applied Research Project, so that's the ARP. The first stage there is what we call framing the problem, and that deserves a lot more attention than it usually gets. We're starting to look at complex problem solving. Is that the students listen to a lecture, and they are asked to respond to that lecture in a way that helps them understand, that I can see that they understand it, and that they got to the last slide, basically. One thing that I try to do is, I'm really still pretty new at doing VoiceThread lectures of any length or as a lecture, but I was conscious of time based on Xavier's comments, but the longest one for me is about 32 minutes still. So, it's 13 slides, something like that. But I felt like if they're going to get into something, there's not a lot of other reading beyond what they find in their research portion of their applied research project. So this is basically the problem-solving process, and they just listen to these lectures to walk through that process. Again, they focus on framing the problem, then they do an analysis of the problem that they've identified, then they'll do the research part of that, and that research portion is dedicated to library materials, how to find library materials. I actually have screenshots of how to use, Fusion is the new thing now. Mm-hmm. So from the library, have screenshots of how to kind of get to that. I give some examples. Throughout this whole applied research project, my lecture includes 2 kind of scenarios. One is if you're working in a call center somewhere and you find that you have a very high turnover of entry-level employees at a call center, and that's the problem that you're addressing. So we kind of set that up and kind of walk through what you would say or how you might approach that. The other scenario that I've used in my lectures is one on low sales. So you're selling something, you've got product lines and things, and all of a sudden your sales start going down. So those are real problems, real examples of problems that students might they might be addressing, something like that. But I try to give them some concrete examples of how they would be looking at their own problem and what they would say, where they would look for those sources of information. I asked them in the research summary to look for 10 sources. Those 10 sources can be from the library, but I also asked them to look at trade journals, industry research, as well as research sources of information within their own company. So I tell them it's okay to interview a stakeholder for the problem. It's okay to do that and add that as a personal interview, so-and-so, person, date, title, etc., and use that as a way of gathering information too. But I asked them to do a balanced, kind of a balanced approach to how to find research that gives them either insight into the problem, the background, or possible solutions. And also in the research, I asked them to look at best practices and innovation. You get on those that search engine, those databases, and you get into something like Business Source Premier or whatever that thing is called. You can put a couple of search terms in there, and then the next search term you can put innovations in, and it's fascinating what comes up. And so using the library is a big important part of this whole course outcomes, and I feel like they do that. And again, they're applying those skills to something that matters to them, as opposed to some random course assignment. Okay, so research is the next part. I call that part 4 when they summarize that. They also prepare, obviously, a bibliography. They also then are given instructions on how to propose alternatives to the problem that they're studying and how to implement those solutions. So I ask them to think about how those alternatives relate to the research that they discovered, and then how to implement those alternatives, and that would include everything from buying new things to recruiting new people or training folks or changing policies or whatever else is they're going to do. And again, try to give them some examples of how that might play out within their own situation. This is a 7.5 week course, so it does fly by. And they finish up that applied research project, and then we're going to ask them to put together an oral presentation and submit that. So we'll see them face to face and see what they have to say, see what they present in terms of supporting materials, visual, PowerPoint, whatever. So that's another way that they'll interact with each other, because they'll be expected to view those. So I was going to say, as far as student to student, we do the introductions, we do the sharing of adult markers. We also have an online course meeting about halfway through. That's to kind of kick off the research process and talk about the various topics that students have uncovered for their applied research project. Then they do the final presentation of their own project, the findings and the whole thing. As far as interaction with me, we also have a phone conference in there, and that's basically focused around their research process, to just to have a dialogue about their own individual concerns or questions. I've also given them Bill Orr's his contact information, and but they do have that individual phone conference. The other thing they'll get from me is a lot of individualized comments on the material that they submit, because we submit a draft and I want to get that turned around as quickly as possible. I've never taught this in a 7.5 week format, so I'm concerned about it. But I think that it's also nice to just focus, just get in there and get it done, and just have that feedback right away and just keep moving with it. So we'll see. As it turns out, I'm scheduled to teach it as a full semester course in the spring, and then it's going to be a shortened course in the fall. So we'll see. We'll have both of those. So I don't have any due dates on anything yet because of that. I haven't even messed with that. So did I give you enough on this as far as interaction? Yeah. Okay. What I liked most about course design and the redesign was the course mapping helped me a lot. I ended up throwing out some stuff that was just kind of left over from a course I taught many, many years ago that wasn't really mapping back to the course objectives that I had. And also, the other part of this that I learned much more about rubrics, about establishing rubrics. And that's just, again, every assignment that I make now, I think about that rubric. I have a little, mental model of a table in my mind. And that's just helped me think a little bit more about not only constructing the assignment, but also, how I'll provide feedback, just that whole thing, connecting those things, the assignment and the rubric has been really helpful to me. I don't have as much experience with that as some might have. And the other part is just integrating all of the different parts, the lecture with the assignments and all of that. I've been very clumsy with that. So Laura's helped me quite a bit, get things a little more organized. I wrote down usability, and I'm going to go back through everything, because I know that's been one of Laura's goals for me, is to make this very usable. So I'm going to go back through and sort of maybe see what I can use from Xavier's comments and make it a little bit more user-friendly. I'd say things that I think that are important in developing an online course: utilize the course mapping first, know what your learning outcomes are, and use the mapping. Understand again that the connection between your assignments and the rubrics, and that not only is it just in giving the instructions, but the assignment itself and how can you assess. Those are probably the two things that I would say. I probably could utilize a little bit more media, or be a little more, I don't know. I'll see how it works. I'll see how 7.5 weeks works, and see if I want to do some YouTubes or some other things. We'll just have to see. And I also retain the flexibility of using my announcements, which I'll do each week, to just maybe do some adjustment, add some information, or something like that. So we'll see. I like having those announcements, and that just gives you that. Your boots are on the ground. This isn't just like a design up here. It's like your boots are on the ground. You're marching through this day by day by day, and then you can make adjustments that way. As far as just defining success as an online instructor, I had very little experience with being a student, an online student, and it was in a MOOC, so a couple of MOOCs, and so there's not much interaction with the instructor. at all. I mean, I didn't assume that. But I'd say that engagement, that at least weekly contact with, hey, here's what's going on, and here's what I noticed. I feel like I want to find ways to sort of sneak it in. So if that's through announcements, if that's through, certainly, my feedback for assignments is very personalized. It's very, the student knows that I have read every single word and that I have considered it and I've set it against the assignment, but also that I have that encouraging kind of attitude of, hey, let's find a solution to this. This is going to really, help you not only solve this problem, but put you in a place in your organization that you'll be noticed as a problem solver, someone that can write well, that can think critically, that can research. I really want them to think of themselves that way. So that's kind of the overall approach that I have with my students. So that I get that opportunity with this particular audience to help kind of build their self-concept of themselves, not only as a student, but also as that employee that has promised. So that's it. Does anybody have any questions? I'm not sure I covered everything. I didn't get down in the weeds here with my course. If I did, it would probably be, one example here would probably be that the research that week. Again, talk a lot about the research summary and what I expect, and that is it's basically a nested, kind of a nested, enclosed circles, because I say look at the closest unit to the problem, that could be the department or the organization or the division. Then look outside into the industry. Where does this problem live is what I really ask them to do, and then look what the research sources might be. And then I say, look out here into the bigger universe in terms of scholarly research, journal articles, big ideas, innovations, big ideas. And so I ask them to think in terms of all those things, inside looking out, and walk them through that. And then, as I said, walk them through like screenshots of how you find things in the library, et cetera. I used to assume that because they were seniors, they would have a lot more experience with using the library. However, they're my age, and so we still had card catalogs when I was in school. So I can't assume that, and so I really have made much more of an effort to bring them into the 21st century in terms of their library skills. So that's the one I would suggest.
I really like how you put the time.
Well, I saw that with somebody else's, and well, you know what? I saw it. I was at the CALE conference a couple of weeks ago, and it's all about adult learners. The whole week-long conference is about adult learners. And it said, you can't assume that because somebody opens something up, that they're not just sitting waiting for Johnny to get out of basketball practice. And so you can say, oh, this is a 10-minute video. I can watch this on the way, or I can listen to this on my way, whatever, on the bus, my bus home or something like that. So I thought, that's a pretty good idea. And it's pretty easy. You just go up there to the voice thread and get the details and see how long it is. So I thought I would just go ahead and add that. Again, just to allow them to plan around all their things that they're doing.
The other thing that I like as a learner, that I noticed right away is whenever you brought up your weekly folder, and even in that your assignments or things that they have to do, action steps are in red, and other things that they're going to review or read or whatever are in black. And so as a learner, that made it real easy. I could see on whatever week you pulled up, I had 3 things that I had to do or turn in or whatever.
Yeah, color coding, as long as you're not colorblind, can make a big difference. And that was Laura's idea, but I'm keeping that, because that's really helpful. Posting the times for lectures, some of those little things can make a difference. And so that's one of the biggest things that I've learned, is that does make a difference for learners. So the transformation of this course is amazing, and it's been a challenge to put it into 7.5 weeks. And I'll just really have to see how students respond to this. I'll really have to see, and I'll just keep the jury out as to whether or not it's going to work. But it's worth a try.
All right. Any other questions? All right.